Hey Hersheypark, it's about time we take you to school. Hey everybody, it's Paul from the 125 Roller Coaster Challenge, and it's time to grade the roller coasters at Hersheypark. Now, what do we mean by grade? As you know, most coaster enthusiasts love to rank coasters against each other, but we take a slightly different approach. Each roller coaster gets a score between 1 and 10 on layout, condition, theming, ride experience, and of course, the fun factor. The average score for this section is 5. Now let's break these down quickly. Let's show you a blank coaster report card so you can see what we're talking about. When it comes to layout, we are looking for creativity. Is this a layout that we've seen before or something just made for the ride and the park? Condition is simple. Is it being taken care of or is it becoming so rough that it's unbearable? While we aren't huge fans of theming on rides, did they make an effort or they just throw up a few signs and call it a day? The ride experience has to do with everything you see when you first enter the queue to when you stagger off the ride. While individual ride operators change from day to day, this score deals with the queue layout, the station, getting on and off the ride, and of course the photo booth or the store at the end of the ride. Finally, the fun factor is pretty simple. Was the coaster actually fun? Which is really the whole point of the ride. Once we put together all the scores, we come up with a grade, which breaks down as follows. An A score means we must ride that coaster every time we go to the park. No matter what the line looks like, we will make sure we get a ride or 2 or 3 every trip. The grade of a B means we gotta ride it. If the lines are long, we're gonna keep checking back from time to time again because this coaster is so good that if we miss it, well, let's not even think about that. In school, the grade of a C is average. And for us, when a coaster gets this grade, we try to ride it. We're going to check in, but if the line is too long, we can skip it and still have a great day. A D-graded coaster is only considered if there is no line. Seriously, it pretty much has to be walk-on for us to consider this coaster. And when a coaster gets an E, yes, we know it's supposed to be an F, but that is pretty harsh. Anyway, we rode this coaster once, we got the coaster credit, and we're never going to ride it again. They may not be bad coasters for us, but we got the credit, and it's really time just to move on. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about Hersheypark. There are 14 active coasters at this park, and we're going to be discussing each one and giving you our thoughts on each. Let's start off with a classic. The Comet at Hersheypark is what we consider a classic wooden coaster, and is located in the hollow section of the park. As one of the original rides being built in 1946, this coaster has seen the park change from having an open entrance where you can just walk in from town to the theme park it is today. Let's look at our stats. The layout comes in at a 7, which with it being a standard up and back coaster is pretty normal, but it does have that final section that shoots out to the right with some additional airtime hills thrown in. While this coaster is old, Hersheypark maintains it to perfection, giving it a 9 out of 10. Theming is average with it getting a 6, while the ride experience is great, coming in at an 8. Finally, is the Comet actually fun? Yes, it is, with a score of a 9. So why are we only giving this coaster a C for a final grade? Now that's an excellent question, and the reason why we only try to ride it each visit is because the Comet is one of the few roller coasters at Hersheypark with a 42-inch height requirement, which means a lot of kids can ride it. While that is fantastic for families and the kids, for us, it means there's usually a pretty long line to get on. So if we see the line short, we're going to jump on it. But unless we're there for a full day, we tend to skip it. Our next coaster was rethemed in 2021, and that is Jolly Rancher Remix. Originally called Sidewinder from 1991 all the way to 2021, this Vekoma Boomerang was one of the first in the United States. Now let's check out the report card. Since this is a clone coaster, the layout is a standard 5. Now with all the upgrades that the park has done to this ride, it makes both the condition and the theming come in at an 8. But the ride experience drops to a 5 because of the nature of these rides. There's only ever one train operations, so you always have to wait a while. Finally, the fun factor is slightly above average at a 6, because it is cool seeing which flavor you get before you drop. It is still a Vekoma boomerang. This ride's final grade is a D because we have ridden so many of these coasters over the years that unless there is no line, we don't think the overall ride is worth any weight. Our next coaster is right next to Jolly Rancher Remix, and that is Storm Runner. This Intamin launch coaster is one of our favorites at the park, and we love how it says, "Now get ready, here we go," before it sends you 75 miles per hour straight up to that top hat. Let's check out the scores. Layout is a solid 8 with this ride being custom made for the area of the park that it's located. Condition and theming both come in at 7, with the ride getting new restraints almost every year, and even though the queue theming is pretty basic, did we not mention the launch soundtrack? The ride experience is a solid 8 with 2 trains bouncing back and forth in the station throughout the summer, and the fun factor being a 9, because even though it is a short ride, you are smiling the whole time. That makes the final grade a B+, because we always check in on this ride all day long, and we can't leave the park without a ride or two. We don't have to marathon it, but we do have to ride it once or twice every visit. Okay, let's change pace a little bit with our next coaster, Laugh Track. Located in the back of the park, the Midway America section, this indoor spinning mouse from Maurer fits a niche the park has been missing for years and becomes a marquee attraction in the off-season. It might be freezing during Christmas Candy Lane, but this ride is always warm, so let's check out that report card. The layout is a standard spinning mouse coaster and is actually the same as Steel Dragon at Waldameer, so it's a 5. The condition of the ride is a 7 because it's in pretty solid shape considering its long ride season, but it is the theming that really sets this ride apart. The Funhouse theme is some of the best at Hersheypark and scores a solid 9, while the ride experience is above average at a 6, even though the load times seem to take forever. They do have the Funhouse mirrors in the queue that help keep the kids very happy. So the fun factor has just got to be through the roof. Well, not really. While the concept is all about fun, the reality is that the inside of the ride with the flashing lights and the cutouts seem more annoying than actually fun. Also, the final score is a D, but it could have very easily been an E because of the uncontrolled spinning. This is actually the closest I have ever come to getting sick on a ride and could just be a one and done if it wasn't for the fact that in the winter, we need to go there just to get warm. Another coaster that tends to be a no line for us is our first ever roller coaster, Trailblazer. Yep, this ride was not just the first roller coaster for both of my kids, but was also my first roller coaster way back in 1978. Hersheypark keeps upgrading this Arrow Mine Train coaster, so fingers crossed my grandkids get to have the same honor. So why is this a no line coaster for us? Let's check out the report card. Its layout is custom, but not really thrilling. In 1974, when this ride was built, it was hugging the edge of the park, and they wanted it to interact more with the train than really give us an expanded layout. While the condition is a 7 with the new magnetic brakes, the theming is now a 6, thanks to Storm Runner kind of ruining the whole western theme of that area. The ride experience and fun factor come in at 5, because even though it was an adult coaster when it was built, it is now a solid family ride, bordering on kiddie coaster, so the grade of a D supports that. Don't get me wrong, we love the Trailblazer, and if we were ranking instead of grading, it would be much higher. But like we mentioned in the beginning, the grades are about what we want to do when we visit the park, and because of that, it's really just a no line for us. So, you're still watching the video. That is great, and it tells us you kind of like the video. If so, why not hit the like button because it lets YouTube know that you're enjoying the video and shares it with others. Thanks again for watching, and let's continue with the first thing you see when you enter the park, Candymonio. Now don't get us started with the name. We would love to know what finished in second place when they were naming this coaster, but this B&M Hypercoaster has been growing on us since it arrived in 2020. Currently our 18th ranked coaster, we love the original layout and scored an 8, even though we wish there was one more element to make us fly out of our seats. The condition is perfect, getting a 10 out of 10, and the theming would be higher simply if it had a better name. It is still an 8 because it does highlight what Mr. Hershey is so famous for. 2 solid 9s for the ride experience and the fun factor. We love floater air, and the middle seats on this coaster give us some of the longest airtime we ever had. This ride gets a B+ because not a trip goes by without a ride or two on this coaster. The reason why it isn't an A is because sometimes we do kind of short visits. Hersheypark is our home park, and if we're only there for an hour, the line sometimes might actually be that long. Did you know Hersheypark actually has a kiddie coaster? Coco Cruiser is located right next to Music Box Theater and is a legit coaster that this park has been lacking for years. The layout is a clone, so it gets a 4 even though the condition is a solid 7. Theming is actually lacking, with the trains looking like they kind of just came with the purchase and only a small sign pointing guests to the entrance. Getting 4 out of 10, the only thing worse is the ride experience, which gets a 3. The fun factor is average at a 5 because we really know we're not the audience for this coaster and the kids seem to enjoy it. This is the definition of an E coaster because we rode it once, got the credit, and moved on. And talking about moving on from kiddie coasters, let's check out the most intense ride not only at this park, but maybe even in the world. Sky Rush is located between the Comet and the Super Duper Looper in the Hollow and is a yellow beacon for every coaster enthusiast. Checking out the report card, this hyper/wing intimate coaster is truly one of a kind with a score of a 9 on the layout. The condition of this coaster is a solid 8, with its weakest score being the theming, which comes to a 6. Come on, the logo is great, but the sign is all this gets? Disappointing to say the least. The ride experience and the fun factor are solid 8, which give this coaster an overall grade of a B-. Why, you ask? Well, this is a gotta ride almost every visit with us, checking out the line all day long. The reason for the minus is we really have to be in the mood to ride this coaster. This ride is so intense and throws you around a lot that if you just want to have a lazy park day, we can skip this coaster, and we have on a few occasions. Sometimes a must ride for most is a gotta ride for us. We just mentioned this coaster, so why not make it next? The Super Duper Looper was the first ever looping coaster on the East Coast when it came to the park in 1977. This Schwarzkopf coaster was showing its age a few years ago, but Hersheypark stepped up and replaced the trains, the restraints, and the brakes to give this coaster a second life. Now let's go check out those stats. The layout was state-of-the-art in 1977, but was custom to fit along Spring Creek, so it gets a 6. The condition a few years ago would have been a 3, but with all the upgrades, it comes in at a solid 8. The theming is yet another sign, and for some reason, a white painted loop. But there is a t-shirt shop right next to the exit selling those black "I Survived the Super Duper Looper" shirts, so we kind of have to give it a 6. The ride experience is also enhanced because of the store, so that gives it a 7. But because this coaster has been a part of my life for over 40 years, yes, I am old, the fun factor is always an 8. The final grade is a solid B with us because we gotta ride this coaster almost every visit. We have 5 more coasters to grade, so let's take a second to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next upload. We are visiting 60 parks in 2024, and we're not only going to have new content on our local parks, but brand new explores, let's eat, and what's new videos for parks that we have never visited before. By subscribing and clicking the bell icon to all, you won't miss a video. Now let's get back to those coasters. Great Bear is the first B&M coaster in the park and has been a favorite of ours for years. Checking out the report card, the layout is just like Storm Runner and custom to the space that the park provided. Coming in with a score of 8, the only thing this ride lacks is theming, which is basically the roar that is produced as it goes along the track. That is why it is slightly above average with a 6. The condition, ride experience, and fun factor are all 9s, with this being a solid B+ coaster where we gotta ride it every visit. The popularity of this ride keeps it out of the A grade because sometimes the line simply never goes down all day long. So what does it take to get an A grade? Look no farther than Hersheypark's newest coaster, Wildcats Revenge. This ride is our 3rd ranked coaster in 2023 and really does it all perfectly. Now let's see the report card of Hersheypark's true honor student. Layout is a 10 out of 10, with it not only being accustomed to the park, but also having an element or two that's never been done before with RMC. The condition is 9 out of 10 simply because they had to do some first year adjustments to the track. While the theming isn't on the same level as a Universal Park, it still gets an 8 out of 10 because the trains are all unique, not just in appearance, but also in name. The ride experience with the perfect load and unload setup and the fun factor are both 10 out of 10. This ride is almost perfection and is an A+ in the grades. We head directly to the back of the park every visit to marathon this ride before the crowds get there. While Wildcats Revenge gets our love, the ride directly across from it gets our hate. Seriously, we do not like the Wild Mouse, and let's check out the scores to see why. This mock mouse gets a 5 on layout because it's a standard clone mouse coaster. It's also in decent shape, so the condition score is a 6, but that is the best scores it gets. Theming is again a sign, but the mouse on it is kind of cute, so we're going to give it a 4. The ride experience and the fun factor are some of the lowest at 3. Now, why is that? Well, the ride experience is like a county fair. You catch your train as it moves along, and you watch your head as you quickly exit the train. The fun factor for me is actually horror. I'm not a fan of switchbacks, but there's usually some trim brakes on the top that slow you down. But not on this coaster. Hersheypark doesn't turn them on, so instead of the ride being fun for me, it's actually I see my life flashing before my eyes because now I know it's going to end with me flying out of a wild mouse. The final grade is a D- and would be an E without question if it wasn't for the peer pressure forcing me to ride this during the off season. 2 more to go, so let's discuss the other GCI in the park that did not get the RMC treatment. Lightning Racer is our top racing coaster and was never considered to be a rough coaster until this year. Is that because the Wildcat is gone, or do they really need to do some serious retracking? Time will tell, but let's check out the report card. The layout is solid with how both tracks interact with each other throughout the entire ride. A solid 7. The condition is pretty rough and is currently at a 4. Theming is average at a 5, while the ride experience and the fun factor come in at a 6. Overall, the grade is a C-. Pretty much it depends on if we're going to be on that side of the park. So if we wander over there, we're going to jump in line, and we've done that a few times this year. Now, is it just me, or did Thunder win every time this year? Let me know in the comments. Our final coaster is another custom Intamin ride, and that is Fahrenheit. This beautiful orange coaster is right in the middle of the park and is the least hyped coaster ever. Let's see the scores. The layout is 100% original and is new to the Intamin portfolio. It gets an 8 instead of a 10 because it kind of follows the Gerstlauer Eurofighter MO. Now, this coaster takes a huge hit on the condition because in 2023, this ride was running rough. It was actually painful and brutal and gets a 3. While theming has helped with the slogan, 97 degrees and falling fast, so it gets a 7. The ride experience is another 3 because, well, we mentioned the pain, right? Well, the fun factor is a 6 because after the pain part, there is some fun. But overall, this coaster is a C because we try to ride it if the line is short. So there you have it, our grades for the coasters at Hersheypark. So let's recap. The one and done coaster is Coco Cruiser, while the 4 coasters we will ride only if there is no line are Jolly Rancher Remix, Laugh Track, Trailblazer, and the Wild Mouse. We try to ride Fahrenheit, the Comet, and Lightning Racer, but if the lines are too long, we can deal with missing it. When it comes to Great Bear, Storm Runner, Candymonium, Sky Rush, and the Super Duper Looper, we just gotta ride them, and if we're staying the full day, we will. But when it comes to a marathon, the coaster that is a must ride every time is our newest, Wildcats Revenge. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video on Hersheypark, why don't you check out the playlist above to see all the other videos we created highlighting our home park. And remember to subscribe so you don't miss the latest videos. We can't wait to see you in the queue in 2024.